right now.
So hey again, Derek. My name is Chris McLellan. I wear two hats in the world. One is the director of category at Cinchy. Cinchy is a Toronto-based company that works in the category of Dataware software, which we'll get into a bit today with Dan's demo. And I also head up operations at the Data Collaboration Alliance, which is a nonprofit we established to really put control at the center of the debate about governance. Think of it this way, and we'll get into this a bit more as well, I hope, but we see control as the essential pre-qualification for privacy. You can't, and how do we get to control of data? Well, stop making copies. And so we're behind things like standards called zero copy integration, and Cinchy itself is a zero copy software. And so I think you'll see that as a recurring theme today, as we show you a bit about what Dataware is and show you a bit about what the Data Collaboration Alliance does. I think you'll find it really fascinating. This is a paradigm shift. This is a change of your point of view on how innovation can happen and how applications can be built. And given that this is largely a governance-focused audience, I think you should find what we share today really eye-opening. I hope, anyway, if we do our job right.
Excellent. I've had the pleasure of dealing with Chris at the Data Collaborative Alliance. Love some of the initiatives you've got going, and it's all in the best interest of small business who have to try to figure out this privacy thing, and you're doing everything you can to make free tools available to them and to help them along the way. So that's good on you. It's up until Data Collaborative Alliance taking this on, it's been a forgotten part of the marketplace, in my opinion. Large enterprise have lots of resources for privacy, but small business does not. So thank you.
Things kind of froze on me there for a second.
That's okay.
Okay, so I think we can just jump into it if you're ready, Derek.
And I am back, but you'll have to re-grant me the ability to share my video.
You came back in as a panelist, so let me just make you co-host again.
It says unable to start video. I assume that was on. I'm on a different computer now, so I don't know if that matters.
No, it doesn't. It's gonna upgrade you to co-host, and you'll be able to share your video.
Okay, great.
And you don't need my video in this one, so I will stop mine and I will become a listener. There you are, Dan.
Oh, there we go. All right, awesome.
Thank you for joining us today. It says Chris McLellan, but it's Dan DeMers, and Dan is the CEO of Cinchy. That's okay.
I'm not sure what's happening with that. It must be.
I think you used Chris's link to log in. That's okay. No big deal.
That's what's causing the confusion. Totally my bad.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
My screen.
I have seen your demo a few times, Dan, and I just find it so fascinating that I think the audience is in for a treat here. So we are recording it, and so over to you, Dan.
All right. And Chris, as I'm talking through, feel free to jump in as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to introduce the concept of Dataware and show you a live demo of the technology in action, show you how we use it to run our company, and talk through how some of our customers are using it. But maybe before we jump into that, maybe just quickly, we talked about the Data Collaboration Alliance. Chris, does it make sense for us just to start by just setting the context in terms of Cinchy versus the DCA and the relationship between, I guess, those entities?
Yeah, I did a little of that up front, but just to reiterate, for the purpose as well, for those that might be watching to this after the fact, again, my name is Chris McLellan. I wear two hats. One is the director of category at Cinchy, and the other is the director of operations at the Data Collaboration Alliance, where on the one hand, our commercial entity, Cinchy, is really used by our customers to for the efficiency outcomes they achieve to build new apps, new technologies, new capabilities, new automations. But at the heart of it is this idea of control. And so and that has huge implications for the future of governance and data privacy, which this audience cares a lot about. In terms of marketing, you're dealing with a lot of sensitive information. So we started the nonprofit and the programs the nonprofit runs to work with other companies, third parties, other technology vendors, anyone, frankly, that shares that vision that if you want to restore or offer advanced privacy and better governance, you need to address the root cause of the problem that is today, and that's a lack of control of information. And so part of what the Data Collaboration Alliance does is advance this new standard called zero copy integration, which is hopefully about a month or two away from being ratified as a national standard in Canada, that we're then going to work with various groups, including the ISO, to advance internationally. And what that does is provide developers and innovators and startups and project leaders with a framework to say, if you want to build technology in a way that offers your stakeholders real control and within a framework that offers, like I said, next generation governance, then you need to decouple data from apps. And that's what Dan will show a little bit more now. But what does that mean? How can you take the data out of an app? I thought apps were for delivering data and to end users, and data in different forms, text, images, videos. Well, they are, but that's also part of their problem in terms when it comes to governance and privacy, as you'll see. But back to the Alliance. So we run that program, we advance standards, but we also have a community, which I'll share a link to, where we bring people together to kind of walk the walk and build zero copy apps for good causes. And it's a really exciting initiative. And that's really just proving to the world that you can build technology more, better, faster, cheaper, but also with absolute control of the information that powers them. So that's probably a good segue into Cinchy, and as a complementary technology to that ethos, that worldview.
Yep. Thanks, Chris. And if you want to get your hands on Dataware and try it for yourself, you can actually sign up via the community on datacollaboration.org. A couple of clicks and you're in and you're using Dataware, and you can experience it firsthand. So I'm going to switch over now, and I'm going to flip over to Cinchy and the concept of Dataware, and I'll kind of go back and forth between that and a live demo, show you how we use it. And then maybe towards the end, I'll flip back and we can jump back into the Alliance and look at the Collaborative Intelligence Network to look at a second example of the technology in action. But let me jump in. So first of all, Cinchy as a company is a play on the word cinch, which means simple. The logo here, you can see this icon is forecasting that, the end of integration, because guess what? Integration sucks. It is a huge time suck, money suck, and even more concerning is it is the reason why people don't have control over data, because it works off of copies. So that fundamental view that the future is inevitably one where data is treated as if it had value, kind of like money, kind of like humans, kind of like intellectual property. These are things that have value that you cannot copy. So that same principle should be extended to the world of data. And that's kind of, think of that as the North Star of our company. Like if I look at our overall company vision, you're seeing that here. It's all about the enablement of data autonomy. That's why we exist as an organization. And everything kind of leads towards that, what I call checkmate, which is the restoration or enablement of data autonomy. So that's a little bit about the company and our vision. But the way that this happens is through this inevitable shift from hardware to software, which we continue to see disrupt the world ever since the first computer program was ever executed. I think it was like 1938, and software is still eating the world, as they say. But Dataware eats the software, and it disrupts how you think about software, because the software of today has to manage data, it has to integrate data, it has to build APIs and ETLs and do reconciliations, and that is the problem. That's what causes this whole copy-based integration approach of APIs and ETLs. And it's kind of like, imagine a world where every electronic device had to have its own power plant. Just imagine how inefficient that is. And quite frankly, how unsafe that would be if you had a nuclear power plant to charge your phone, and then a different power plant to charge your, I don't know, remote control for your stereo or something. But so it's that separation of the data from the software that makes everything more controlled, more secure, more simple, and more accessible. And it's all this complexity just falls off the bone with this concept. So first of all, you're probably familiar with the concept of a data warehouse, which is a way of doing analytics. How do I get reports and intelligence out of data that is spanning my applications? The older approach is a data warehouse. The kind of ultra modern approach is what's called a data mesh. There's lots of hype around that, but it's really the difference between a centralized model versus a federated model, and it's better. It's not completely different. It's better in that it is federated. And then separately, you have this whole concept of integration, and you have the recent shift towards the concept of a data fabric, which again, similar to the data mesh to the warehouse, it's better. It's simpler than building APIs, ETLs, and doing point-to-point integrations, but it doesn't change the game. It's a new spin in the same way that the calculator is, you can kind of do what you can do with the abacus, but it's better. It's an improvement. Whereas with Dataware, it's actually just completely different, right? It's neither a better cordless phone nor a better calculator. It's both, but it's also a bunch of other things. It's completely different, right? So that's the first thing to get your head around, is that Dataware is not better than data, insert buzzword here. It's completely different in the same way that software was completely different than hardware, but it changed hardware, right? Before software, there was a machine for that. And post software, there's an app for that, right? It changes everything. You make machines programmable now with software. And this is a concept that isn't unique to us. This is actually a concept that goes back many decades, but it was like talking about teleportation, like science fiction, but that's changed. New technology has made this not only theoretically possible, but practically simple. And that's really what we specialize in, is helping organizations take advantage of that for their own betterment, and also for the betterment of the world by enabling that control. So life without Dataware is a world where you have apps, and these apps grow. Some you buy, some you build. They all manage data. And that's the problem, is you have to work around that by doing this wacky thing called integration. You're building APIs and ETLs, and they're filling the gaps between applications using desktop tools like spreadsheets and others that also need to interact with data. You're downloading data, you're sending copies of it as attachments over email, and you're adding, continuously adding more red lines and more green lines. And how do I do analytics? Well, the default answer is you implement an analytics program. And now you're adding orange lines to basically move copies of the data from your applications into your analytics platform. But you add a new app, you're adding more red lines, more orange lines, more green lines. And if your analytics platform is able to keep up, then it's useless until you can feed the intelligence back into the apps. So now you're reversing that. And that's a lot of lines. So how do you govern that? Well, the standard approach is to add on additional tax and slow down by adding in governance as an add-on. Right, let's talk about metadata management and master data management and information security monitoring. And now you add a new business capability. Well, business capabilities these days are implemented as software. Well, software equals apps. It's basically, you now have to add green lines, red lines, orange lines, blue lines. And the more capability you have, the more of these lines you have. And it's not linear, it's exponential. That's the problem. That's why a big company is so less efficient than a small company. And every line is a copy of data that basically prevents you from having total control over that data. And this is a simplification with 4 applications. I've been at big banks that have tens of thousands of applications. Just imagine how many lines there are. There's a reason why they spend billions of dollars on technology every year, is because of this phenomena. Is data really just doesn't belong to an application, but we architect as if it did. And that's been true since many decades. So that's very complicated. That is not the future. If you buy into this whole thesis of data being at the center and data having value, therefore not being copied. So that's what Dataware does. It reimagines this to be a much simpler place where you've got people, you've got apps, and they collaborate on data. They don't integrate data. They don't send copies back and forth. They collaborate on it. And that is kind of the core essence of it. And the idea of collaboration isn't new. We've seen that already. If you think of how you work on files as part of a project team, go back 20 years, you would have created a PowerPoint file, sent copies back and forth as email attachments. And then before the big presentation, you would have got everyone's latest version and tried to merge them together to create the final presentation. You would have integrated them. Well, today you wouldn't do that. You would spin up a Google slide or something on Office 365 or SharePoint or something, and you would give access to the people who are collaborating, and they would work on it together live in real time. And it enables a platform. It can't be done without that platform, but it totally changes. You're continuously integrating. There is no integration. It's collaboration. We don't call continuous integration integration. You don't think of it that way. So what Dataware is really doing is just extending that to data. So in the same way that you can collaborate on documents using Google Drive, you can collaborate on data using Dataware. Same concept. Doing less and less API and ETL-based copy integration and moving towards real-time data collaboration. So that's really what our specialty is we're leading this revolution, but we firmly believe there's an inevitability to this. Quite frankly, it's happening with or without us. All we can do is help to guide and steer and benefit from that and help others benefit from being more on the early adopter side of that. But we have some pretty good traction within our customers, and there's a sampling of some of our customers, and this includes big global banks, insurance companies, major retailers, healthcare providers. It's a growing collection of mid-sized and large enterprise, and we have some small companies as well. Like as an example, we've environment, and this is our live environment that we use to run our business. And you can see I'm in the present, September 13th, but I can also just rewind and go into the past. But what I'm looking at here, like this cluster here, is actually all of our company's knowledge that I have access as a concept. And that is a large object, and you can see how it's connected to other objects. And notice that there's different colors. Some of them are yellow, some of them are red, some of them are blue. Well, what is happening is those objects are being grouped based on a subject area. So if I expand the catalog here, you can see this yellow object, which is our employees, is part of our HR domain, what we call employee success. And you can see there's all of our HR data as an example. If I zoom out and move that up there, let me just turn off the gravity for a second. But what's powerful about this is it's connected with data, not only within the HR realm, but with basically all data. So if I wanted to look for marketing, I can see there's all of our marketing data. It's all this purple data that you're seeing here. So things like campaigns as an example. And if I zoom out of marketing and I move marketing up there, notice that it's connected to the central cluster of other colors, but it's also connected to all these orange ones. So there's a link between HR and marketing, not just one link, there are many links. And I can do the same for, say, sales, or I can do the same for compliance. There's all of our sales data, this green data. If I want to look at our compliance, there's all of our compliance data. It's this pinkish data. The point is that it's all connected, right? And that's the magic of data. It is actually connected. You just can't see it when it exists in all these artificial things that we call silos. They're not real. There are these walls between applications for data just don't really make any sense. And that's what you're seeing is a world without such walls. So now this is a map of the data, but it's more than that. So if you think of this as kind of like Google Maps, if you've used like the satellite view where you can see the whole planet, you can search for an address. So maybe I want to search for an address and say, show me employees. But it's kind of neat when in Google Maps, you can just click and go down to the street view and you can see what's actually on the street. You can do the same here, which is let's go into the street view. And what's on the street here is the data, right? So I'm seeing the data. And it's presenting me with a grid view. And you can see, for example, here's our employees. And there's 50 records. We have 50 employees today, and there's rows and columns, and it kind of feels like a spreadsheet. I can even freeze the columns. I can copy and paste. I can fill down, but it's not a spreadsheet. But nor is it a database. It's Dataware. It's different. And one of the ways it's different is this entire visual experience is kind of just an illusion. I can open up a different experience. I'm going to open up a 360 view, and I'm just going to pick my record as an example. I'm employee number 1 on row 13. This is sorted alphabetically. And this grid view, you can see some fields are read-only, some fields are editable. Well, here's a different skin, but it's the same data, and the controls are not duplicated. There's no separate code to make this field read-only or editable or so on and so forth. It's all at the data layer. So the protections, regardless of how I'm interfacing with that, regardless of what skin I'm using or what app I'm using or what reporting tool I'm using, is guaranteed to be the same because it's not in the application, it's in the data itself. It's like it's at a cellular level, it's embedded with its own protection. So here you can see just my record, for example, as an employee. There's my photo, my start date, my bio. Here's my career goals. Here's even the application of machine learning to predict my personality and contact information and engagement signals and summary of all my open work and out of office and performance reviews and employment agreements and comp history and stock options, and everything is here. But that's just one record in one data set, which is in one data network. I can do the same with any object that you see here. I can zoom into a campaign, an invoice, and not only that, where it starts to be different from, say, Google Maps, the Street View, is if I'm in Google Maps Street View, I'm not looking at a live view. It's a point in time from when the Google car last drove through years ago and took a picture. So if I'm looking at my house, maybe there's snow outside, but I see the picture and it's summer. And maybe there's some trash on the street and I can't pick it up because it's frozen. It's so frustrating to see that. I want to be able to pick it up and I want it to be live. Well, here the Street View is live and you can pick up the trash, meaning you can change the data. So this isn't a view into data, this is the data. That being said, the data may be coming in from many different sources. It may be a blend of data that is created net new in the platform or connected into the platform. So if I show you another example, if I go to a different object, I'll go to one called people. And obviously there's a relationship between people and employees, as you can imagine. Here I'm looking at a collection of people. And if I just pick one kind of at random here, and if I look at the collaboration log of this record, what you're going to see is it's gone through a bunch of evolutions, right? It was created in a system called HubSpot, where somebody had an address, but then Google came in and enriched that address. And then ZoomInfo came in and provided LinkedIn. And then we did a personality profile. And what's amazing about this is we're basically using collaborative intelligence. We're chaining together these different sources of business capability, but the data is not being shared. These systems are not integrated to each other. They're each separately connected to the network. And whoever ultimately owns an individual data cell is the one that is always in control over who can access it, who can change it. That is never leaving the hands of the rightful owner of that data. So that's just a quick preview of it. But often when you see this, it looks kind of science fiction like into the future. You're not going to replace your existing system. So how do you actually get there? And the answer is, well, you don't just rebuild what you already have. You have to be able to leverage what you already have, but change how you deliver change. So as an example, if this was your current state, imagine you had 3 applications and maybe you have a reporting platform. Well, if you continue to implement new capabilities and you're not using Dataware, this is what your future might look like. You're going to add more applications, more databases, and guess what? More integrations. And those integrations, it's not 3 integrations for 3 new apps. In this simple example, it's 15 integrations for 3 new apps. Whereas if you went to an alternate future, where you're using Dataware, you're still going to do some integrations because you still have this legacy infra, but you're going to do a lot less. So every time you build a project where you need to do an integration, think of it as it's the last time you need to do an integration, because what you're really doing is you're liberating. You're not integrating. You're doing the last integration for that data. And in this scenario, if this was actually your current state and future state, is from here, if you added 10,000 more applications, you would add 0 more integrations, because guess what? Your data is liberated now. But you didn't do that as a project. You did that as you went. So the key is to do it gradually. Do it as you deliver projects, right? So anytime you would otherwise need to do an integration, stop, do a liberation, deliver the project, save time and money by using the technology to connect, control, and collaborate on data, and then move on to your next project. And the next thing you know, your data is all liberated. And that's a long journey. Like we've even been at it for our own company since 2018. But I would say we're at the point now where we have no integration. We have our data fully liberated. It's totally in our control. And it took us a bunch of years, but we didn't spend $1 doing that, because every time we would use the technology, we would have had to do something anyways. It was just a different way of implementing what we needed to get the capabilities that we needed, but one that led to this much simpler future. So that's the core concept. So liberating data from applications like vendor apps and SaaS apps, back it up, unlock it, reuse it, avoid paying end user licensing fees just to access your own data or give access to others. Same for your internal applications, liberate data from spreadsheets. And the business case really is, as you could expect, largely centered around reducing the cost of integration. But there's all these other accelerations that kick in, faster mechanisms to build new technology, the automation of governance. It's no longer a tax. It's actually acceleration through governance instead of governance to slow down innovation, enablement to self-service. Like these are all the complexity elements that just fall off the bone by adopting Dataware as your new foundation for delivering change. So that's the concept. This just kind of shows an architecture view. I won't get into that unless anyone has any questions. But Chris, was there anything else that you think we should show before flipping back to the Alliance?
No, I think that's good, Dan. Thanks. So, there was a lot in there, but that's why we're recording it on video so you can peruse it. But one question I think could come up is this for small, medium-sized organizations? And, it's coming. True, this technology is largely used by data-intensive, medium and large-sized organizations today. But this is coming because I think I read a study recently, even small SME marketers, in this case, manage 200 plus apps. So, and as Derek presented before this meeting, Quebec and other jurisdictions like California and Europe are coming down fast and hard on data governance and data protection. And so this is an issue that no one can hide from moving forward. And so this technology will, and others like it, will continue to hopefully gain more and more traction, because to continue to innovate and serve customers without having control won't be an option for much longer. So I think that's some context, but I know this is a marketing audience. So if there's any questions about what this means, I'm a marketer. So if you have any questions how I use it, we can do some more show and tell, that sort of thing, for sure.
As I mentioned earlier, if you want to get your hands on it and try it out, if you go to the Data Collaboration Alliance, just click on join community. You can sign up with just one click using single sign-on. So I'll just do it using Google as an example. And then you're in, and what you'll see is the collaboration hub, which kind of looks and feels and smells like a portal of applications. Like you can see a bunch of applications here, largely centered to help organizations better understand, the privacy landscape. What are the laws? What are the news, et cetera. And I can click in and open these, but what's actually happening behind the scenes is what you're seeing is really just a skin, an illusion. It's all liberated data that is under the control of the rightful owner of it. And those screens that you were seeing earlier are really just experiences into the data that you're seeing here. So you have access to all of this. Anyone can go in and pop in and see what they have access to see, change what they have access to change. You can contribute to it, but you can kind of experience it all firsthand in a context that might be relevant to you.
So I built those. Those apps were built in days, and so the only real challenge was getting access to the data to build them. That was the only thing that stopped the process of creating a table. That was then we worked with a front end developer to add the very light touch user experience you see in days, and it's really reusing the same data over and over again for different use cases and apps. This is the future. It's not a database for everything, an app for everything, and a database for every app, and copies between every database. That's yesterday's news, and it's unsustainable in a world of increasing data protection regulation in any case. So these are just these are handy apps for privacy pros. I encourage you to check them out. And you can see at the top left, we have a collaborate button. So the community also encourages folks to think of projects they want to do using the zero copy methodology, for good causes. So we build apps for good causes is the short way to think of it, using the zero copy framework. So Derek, I can flip it back to yourself, and
I'll stop the share on my side.
Yeah. Again, if any of you would like a full demonstration with your technical people, Dan would be happy or to have himself or Chris or somebody in the organization to speak to this.
For sure.
And like I said, Dan, I've seen you do this several times, and I find it incredibly intriguing because I do believe you're spot on to kind of stick a pin in where it's going, and where it's been, why it developed that way, almost doesn't matter. It's like, it did, but get your foot out of the mud and start.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah. Well, it's like the invention of software, right? There's an inevitability to that. Sure, someone will get the credit for the first program, but if they were never born, someone else would create it. But in a world where software is now available, if you continue to go and say, we're going to build a machine for that instead of an app for that, you're going to be left behind. Like it's not a choice anymore. This is just the realities of technological advancement.
If you think of marketers, I'm sure many of you would be familiar with zero-party data. Like data collection itself is changing rapidly, and it's to the point where folks want to get direct data contributions from their end users and customers. Well, how do you encourage that? Well, how about if you give them way more control over the data they're contributing to your ecosystem as an encouragement to give you that zero-party data? That can be a real, as the models go from third-party data to second-party data to first-party data to zero-party data. I think it's control that will encourage that. So if they put data in, they share it with you for your survey, to help run your app, for your census, whatever it might be, they can take it out. And if they know they can take it out and it was never copied while it was in there, then that is the sort of agency that will encourage more collaboration between you and the folks that have the data you would love access to, like your customers and end users.
I just put in the Q&A if anybody would like to access the link to go to the sign on for the Data Collaborative Alliance.
Great. Cool.
Um,
Thanks again, Derek. Appreciate the time.
Thanks for joining us.
I just want to check in with the folks and see if there are any questions. Somebody just said their IT team should really take a look at this. So,
For sure.
And I agree.
I put my email in there, Derek, if anyone wants to email.
Great.
I'm happy
Thank
to
you.
coordinate whatever briefings they need.
Okay, very good. Thank you very much, Chris and Dan, for your time today.
Yeah, happy to do it. Thanks.
I really wanted to touch on where the future of data was going, because I believe that this is kind of at the core, and it's the way to do it right. So thank you. And I thoroughly enjoy my connection with Cinchy and data collaboration.
All right. Awesome.
Thanks, Derek. You've always been a great supporter. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks.
Bye, everyone. Thank you. Thanks,
Bye for now.
Well, ended up in a